Yeah.
Hey, Mohammed, you will have more holder. Yeah.
And we have this.
Okay.
I think, do I get to introduce myself sometime?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
There's one there, all right. Do we need this?
Well, we'll find out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
to introduce myself, I'm Ava.
I am John.
John is Mayo. I'm Ava.
Raj.
Raj is Mayo.
We have our contact, or I know what about.
It's Jan.
What is that? Yeah. Anybody is taking?
Who wants to be our contact?
Oh. Are you an iPhone user? How we can lock this? No. Okay.
You want to lock this, right? Yeah.
I don't want to lock this.
Mark,
No, it's
can you be joke now?
it's okay.
Sure, I'll let someone out.
Yeah. What do you want? You want to record this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
want to record like this.
okay. I think then it is not this thing, right?
Yeah.
Our contact is
Live. Yeah. Rotate device orientation is locked. Okay, maybe it's a YouTube setting, right?
This is timer worksheet.
Well,
Okay, so this is
timer is,
timer.
is, Sam.
No idea.
Oh.
I think I can just send it back.
Jim, what it is saying?
Orientation is locked. Rotate device back.
Like this?
No, it wants it to be
What?
vertical.
Oh,
Yeah.
vertical.
So you need to unlock the orientation in the settings.
Oh, swipe up.
It's in next February, right? When is it?
Lunar New Year.
When-
February 7th.
February the
Monday.
I was kind of googling. I was looking at Toastmasters masters for a little while, but then I thought, okay, let me try seeing what.
It's front and back
That's why I'm
camera.
here.
Rashmi's.
Nice to meet you all. Really.
That's great.
Wait. So, was she used it back?
No, but it's locked and I don't know how to do it on the iPhone. I how to do it on the
Give us a location.
successful. We are not successful.
Oh, okay.
Ever
No
tried,
problem.
ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. We don't like to think about failure. We sweep it under the rug, hide it away, and are often ashamed. Yet everyone has failed at some times. The question is, are you going to grow, or are you going to just stay as you are, out of fear, and waste your precious human life by status quoing, instead of being willing to break the sound barrier, break the glass ceiling, or whatever it is in your own life? Or are you willing to go forward? You have to find the willingness to go forward instead of staying still, because staying still is essentially going backward. When you have a calling in some direction, that calling needs to be answered, and it's not necessarily going to work the way you want it to work it to be, but it is taking you forward, and you are leaving the nest. Dear friends, don't afraid to fail. Get prepared to fail. Failures are the portal to creativity and new opportunity, to learn something new and to have a fresh look at things. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you. Can I ask you who wrote that?
It was from a couple of places. Oh, yeah, okay, so this was
you put it
from the
together?
Samuel, poet Samuel Beckett.
Samuel
And-
Beckett?
Yeah,
He wrote the whole thing, or you combined it?
no, I combined from the.
That
So
quote
actually-
is from this guy.
So VG actually wrote it. Very impressive. You should send it to us in the WhatsApp. Because this is called there's a word for it. When you combine different pieces of material together, it's called a
Mashup?
mashup. Very important. Very good. We're gonna go over the roles. There's some rearrangement. Our art counter today is Rashmi. Would you describe the role? please?
Yeah. So I'll be the arc outer for today's session. So for each of you, I'm going to count this the color words you are using in your speech or table topics, and I'm going to count for myself as well. Thank you.
Thank you. There's apparently a fine for members. It's 5 cents up to a maximum of 25
Cents.
cents.
Okay.
Or dollars if you want to.
Our timer is Samuel. Samuel?
Fellow Toastmasters and guests. For this meeting, I'm going to be your timer. As a timer, I'll be timing today's speeches, evaluations, and table topic. The speeches are 5 to 7 minutes. All the speeches are 5 to 7 minutes. So at 7 minutes, I'll show the green card. At 6 minutes, I'll show yellow, and then at 7 minutes, I'll show a red. After you see the red, you still have 30 seconds to wrap up. If you still haven't wrapped up, you have a bell. I'll ring the bell. Same thing for evaluation. It's after 2 minutes, I'll show the green. After 2.5 minutes, I'll show the yellow, and then 3 minutes, I'll show the red. For table topics, at 1 minute, I'll show green. 1.5 minutes, I'll show yellow, and 2 minutes, I'll show the red. You have 30 seconds to wrap up. At the end, I will report the timing. Thanks.
Thank you. And John is our word master.
Yes, our word of the day is insurmountable. And insurmountable means incapable of being surmounted, overcome, defeated. Some synonyms are bulletproof, impregnable, indomitable, insuperable, invincible. You probably get the idea. A couple examples are, they were faced with several insurmountable obstacles. The familiar story of the underdog who ultimately triumphs despite insurmountable odds. So please work that into your speeches, your evaluations, your answers to table topics, your random patter during the meeting. I'll keep a count of who uses the word of the day. And do we still have the fine? If you have a speaking opportunity and you fail to use the word of the day at least once, you'll get fined. Is it 25 cents, I think, or is it 50 cents?
25.
25 cents. It'll be 25 cents. So in addition to getting dinged for ahs and ums, you'll get dinged if you do not use the word of the day. Insurmountable. It's right up here on the board. I also emailed a copy of the dictionary information to our email list, so you may show up on your phone or laptop or whatever you have.
That's great, thank you. When you come to Toastmasters, there's nothing insurmountable in terms of being able to practice speaking, and then you'll be able to stand in front of an audience, any audience, and speak. So that becomes not insurmountable anymore, to be able to speak in public. Mark, you're our grammarian.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be your grammarian for today. I will be monitoring you as you attempt to take on the almost insurmountable challenge of using the English language correctly. I'll be monitoring your usage of grammar. I'll be checking for great usage as well as poor usage, and I'll give a report at the end. There's no fine for incorrect usage of grammar, so have at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And Kazu, you are a bell counter.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Kazu.
Morning, Kazu.
Good morning.
I will be a vowel counter, which after the regular speeches, I will pass these little small bags around, and then after that, I will correct all the votes and count, and then I will get the result back to president after the meeting. Oh, yeah, president after the meeting. Just one thing, please try to give all the feedbacks, not only for regular speakers, but evaluators and Toastmaster and topic master. It's insurmountable task to give all the comments in such a short time, but please do it because that's the beauty of Toastmaster. Get back to you.
Thank you. We looks like the camera is over there, so we're gonna rely on those folks over there to be video master. Now, one thing is, I don't see Appen here, so we need an evaluator, another evaluator.
I can evaluate.
Thank you,
So
John.
who am I gonna evaluate?
You'll be evaluating our second speaker, Ava.
Ava, okay. Do you have like a goal for your speech or?
Maybe you can look at my clarity, pronunciation, my stage presence.
Okay.
Thank you. So now we're on to our prepared speakers. We have 2 prepared speakers. And our first speaker is relatively new, but he's already a VP of education in terms of what's the share role? Co-VP of education for the club. And he already gave his icebreaker, thank you, last week. And he's giving his second speech today. He spent a lot of time navigating through the pathway system. And he finally figured out what topic he's gonna talk about. He's gonna talk about something about diet. So it'll be very interesting. How do you eat healthy? That's what he's gonna talk about. And folks have spent a lot of time, decades, studying this, and he's gonna talk about how some of the results. Let's welcome Scott to talk about healthy diet. Do you need to set up?
Do you need to project?
No, this is just notes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Good morning. Today thank you for having me here, and my topic is whether dietary fat is good or bad for you. This has been a long-driven, decades-old question, whether we should eat more fat or less fat, or does that matter at all? Recently, I came across a review on the Science magazine, and this is a bunch of scientists that come together to put a review on people's different viewpoint on whether we should eat more or less fat. So that's more of a diverse approach, which I think is a good way to share, good thing to share. So first, diet is something that we have to think about every day, and we make the decision every day. For example, what do you eat for breakfast, right? Do you feel good that you eat what you ate? Do you feel that, okay, I may have too much processed food, or it's just that, I ate bacon again, is that good? So this kind of question we ask every day, and it can sometimes be even emotional because we have some kind of insecurity or some kind of guilt on what we eat, and we just don't have a good answer on, is that good? Is that good for me? So this is something that I would like to share because I think it's really relevant. And I want to talk about why the reason that why people may hate or love fat, and at the end, some general guideline on what we can approach this problem. Some keywords that I may come across a couple times are obesity, cardiovascular disease, and cancer, because those are some common concerns about diets, especially their long-term effects. So let me start with why people may want to eat less fat. Decades ago, the U.S. published a certain guideline on what to eat. In this guideline, almost 50% of the diet of your energy should come from carbohydrates. This is coming from kind of the wake-up call from the dad of the President Eisenhower, because he, as people thought at the time, ate too much fat. So this is, there's some good reason about it though. For example, on average, the American diet contains about 1/3 of fat for their energy, and a low-fat diet will be considered if you have less than 30% of your energy coming from fat. And a high-fat diet will be something over 50%. So thinking about that range to put you a little bit into perspective, you don't need to move the needle too much to become low-fat or high-fat. And some of the reason that people may want to eat less fat is one, obesity, because fat doesn't fill you up that easily as compared to fibers or carbohydrates or protein. You may actually eat more. Also, the energy density of fat is higher, and the human body can store much more fat than carbohydrates. That's some reasons that you may consider a lower fat diet. In terms of cardiovascular disease, many of it coming from a low density, LDL cholesterols, and for example, omega-3 fatty acids. So all those things come from fats. So if you eliminate them, you may end up with a lower blood level of them. And for cancer, certain cancers may be promoted by fat because it is very related to how cells communicate with each other, and some of the chemicals are originated from fat. For example, the risk of prostate cancer may be improved by eating too much fat. And then I want to move on to why, on the opposite side, some people would prefer a higher fat content. For example, we all heard of the term ketogenic diet, and that is referred to if you eat more than 70% of your energy from fat. One of the common reasons that people think about higher fat, for example, over 50%, or even ketogenic diet, over 70%, is insulin control. So some people have a lower responsiveness to insulin, and that can lead to diabetes, especially people who already have pre-diabetes or diabetes type 2. They may consider a lower carbohydrate intake, because if you don't take as much sugar, you are not going to respond to it that strongly. So that can be one of the reasons to think about. And in terms of cancer, there are also other kinds of cancer that will be promoted by sugar. So depending on what you feed your cells, you may suffocate some of the cancer cells that relate a lot on that. And finally, I want to go to certain general guidelines for how we approach this problem. It is insurmountable to find a lot of good science-based evidence for whether we should eat more or less fat, because people are so different and everyone has different needs and respond. So I have 4 general guidelines that may just help us make easier decisions. One is focus on the quality. For example, for sugar, for carbohydrates, you don't want to eat so much processed sugar, or you don't want to eat so much processed fat. Instead, look for something that you can recognize what it was. For example, you eat chicken that looks like chicken before, or you eat vegetables that look like vegetables, or you can just cook your own food from whole fruit or whole meat. The second one is pick the right fat. For example, trans fat can be bad, and also substitute some of your saturated fat if you eat too much of them. The third is fat can come from both plant and animal. So avocados, nuts, seeds, and all this different diets from plant can also give you a lot of fat. So don't be afraid of that. Finally, make it yourself. Think about what is your actual needs and choose your diet accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. We spend a minute giving feedback, written feedback to Scott. One thing I like to resolve, before Upon came in, I asked John to be evaluated, but now we're going to be evaluated. So I assume Upon you're going to be evaluated. Is that okay, John?
Yeah, that's fine.
Whom I'm going to evaluate?
Huh?
Whom I'm going to evaluate?
Yeah.
The next speaker.
Do you want me to evaluate or? I'm glad to evaluate if you prefer that. Okay, I'll evaluate it by the end of that.
Okay. So John's going to be evaluated.
Okay.
So our next speaker has chosen her pathway to be effective coaching. She's a CPA who works for a tech firm in the Valley in internal audit, but she also has a side gig to be a real estate agent. So next time you want to buy or sell a house, you can consult with her. In the meantime, she's going to talk about something very interesting. The 100 tricks to appear smart. So that's all come out. Next speaker, Ava.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmasters. It looks like we are experiencing a technical issue here.
You may need to turn the Roku back on.
I don't know, not very savvy in this area.
It's off.
Oh, it's all off.
That's off, okay.
Probably turn it back on.
There we go.
And then pick HDMI too.
Ah, there we go.
Thank you everyone for having me, and it's so good to see a lot of you, and I hope you have a good jump start of 2019, and may this year be a very successful year for you in your personal and professional developments. So in terms of professional developments, attending meetings is a big part of Silicon Valley work culture here. People usually schedule meetings to talk about meetings, follow-up meetings, after meetings, all this nonsense. After I came here, I feel like in a year, I feel like I have attended more meetings than my previous 7 years occupied. Among all these meetings, a lot of times I found myself clueless, no idea what everybody's talking about. Then I have been asking myself, how can I appear smart? Or at least know what's going on. So I stumbled upon this book, How to Appear Smart, 100 Tricks to Appear Smart in Meetings. This is Amazon's #1 bestseller in communication category. It was written by Sarah Cooper. She used to work in Google and YouTube. Among her years in Silicon Valley, she was like, I need to outsmart these people. Let me figure out ways. So she came up with all these ideas. So I started reading this book, and I picked 5 easy ones. I think they are very interesting, but yet still very practical. So I want to share these 5 with you today. The first one is encourage everyone to take a step back. So imagine in a meeting, very high stake, everybody is talking, cannot reach consensus, and then the meeting is gonna drag on for another 2 hours. It's time for you to shine. You step in and say, hey guys, let's take a step back. Everybody will turn their heads towards you. They will be amazed at your guts and ability to silence the fray. Then you can say, okay, so what problems are we really trying to solve here? Then you just brought yourself another hour of looking smart. I have never tried. I only seen one person do that who is a senior VP. Give their idea. Second one is repeat in the last thing engineer said, but very, very slowly. Any engineers here today? Raise your hands, please. Oh, you guys are not going to like what I'm gonna say.
This is hilarious.
So me coming as a finance person, going to a room with engineers, and our engineers are usually pretty quiet throughout the meeting, right? But when your moment comes, everything you said is full of brilliance, full of intellect. You will be like, what? So what I will do is I will be like, Jim, let me just repeat what you just said, and I will repeat the last thing you said. Very, very slowly. Everybody from the meeting look back, they will think, oh, Ava say that. She's very smart. Sorry, Jim. Sorry. So this one is actually quite common. I saw my boss do that all the time. So pace around the room. In a conference room, long meeting again. So somebody just get out of the chair, start walking around, like leaning against the wall, looking intense. I immediately respect that person because psychologically that takes a lot of guts to get on the chair, start walking around the room like you totally own the room. Most time, I think my boss is very tired from sitting in meetings. He's just trying to stretch his leg, or he's about to fall asleep. That's why he get out of the chair. But he does look smart when he starts walking around the meeting. There's something maybe we can try. Okay, the first one is asking the presenter to go back a slide. Sorry, can you go back to a slide? These are the 7 words every presenter hates to hear. And as soon as you say that, everybody look at you like, oh, what did I miss? She must have found something so important. Nobody seems to find out. Then everybody will be staring at you thinking, okay.
Can you go back to the previous one?
Yes, Any questions here? So if you know you actually have nothing to say, you can just stare at the slide, looking very intense for 2 seconds, and then say, "Oh, okay, I got it. Let's move on." It does make you look smart, like right here. You just did. So the last one is just taking that offline. So going back to my beginning comments, a lot of times I have no idea what everybody's talking about because there are like so many meetings. Sometimes you came to the meeting unprepared. So when you have no clue what everybody is talking about, you can suggest that take that conversation, deep conversation offline, because you can say deep conversations are more productive and when we discuss in person and in the interest of everybody's time. So if somebody challenges you, say, okay, so what does a deep conversation mean? You can say, well, I'm open to discussing it, but let's take it offline. So these are the 5 ideas I shared with you, and there are so many of them. So if you are interested in this book, let me know. I can share this book with you. Thank you.
Please spend a minute providing feedback to Ava. So now we're on to our next section of the meeting. And our next person who's gonna come up the general evaluator is comparatively even more experienced than I. And when it comes to table topics, nothing is insurmountable in terms of topics. He can talk about anything and turn that topic into an incredible table topic. Let's welcome Jim to be our general evaluator.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Why, man. All right. This is the part of the meeting where you get your money's worth from your dues. If you've just given a speech, you get some great feedback from your evaluator to find out how you can improve your next speech. So I also find it very useful to listen to the evaluators because a lot of times what they say I can use in my next speech too. So let's welcome our first evaluator, our Sergeant at Arms, and he will evaluate our first speaker, Scott. Please help me welcome Mohammed.
Hello everybody, hi Scott.
Hi.
Thanks for your speech, that was really good. Start talking about like the way that you were talking, your voice was really good. I think everybody was able to hear you. Your eye contact was really good. I was just looking at everybody. That was really great. And the way that you had your sentences, they were all clear in terms of like using the words. Moving the stage, of course you didn't have space to to walk around, so that's something that we can talk about it. You started really well with it. Tell us what you want to talk about it. The opening was good, but in terms of closing, I'm not sure if you had time to close it or you were rushing, because I heard the bell and you finished it, so maybe that's something that you can think about timing of your presentation and concluding your presentation. And one thing that it was very general about your speech, you used a lot of like technical and medical terms. So maybe for a person who has like medical background, that's really interesting and it's really easy to understand and get engaged. But like for some of the words were not found. For instance, you said that we all have heard about like ketogenic diet. I've never heard about that. That was my first time. That I think that's one thing. And another thing is just using the numbers just verbally. When you have a lot of numbers, sometimes like especially I like numbers and I get lost. Then I want to make connections. Then maybe so like maybe if you have a lot of numbers, you need to have I don't know like things like that. Yeah, that was my overall. But overall, that was really good presentation. You were really present and clear and good eye contact with everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second speaker today shows a very interesting book that I actually saw at White Elephant Gift Exchange in December at work. So I'm very curious now to hear how our second evaluator, John, will give her some tips to work on her speech. Please welcome John.
So Ava, you asked me to look at clarity, your presentation, I think your demeanor. I thought you nailed that. I think you came across as very confident about your subject. You had a good opening to the presentation, established very confident. I think we all felt like you knew what you were talking about. You somewhat established your credentials by talking about your own experience, and then the 7 years before with far fewer meetings, obviously not in the Silicon Valley.
So many meetings.
Yeah, so I think you did that extremely well. You established the credibility of the book very well at the beginning. So you physically had a physical book, which I think was more powerful than just having a slide with a book cover. So I thought that worked. And you established something of the credentials of the author. It worked at Google, at YouTube, very recognizable names, and her experience. So I thought that all worked very well at establishing, hey, this is a book by someone who knows what they're talking about. There was great use of humor, and you had 5 good examples. Obviously, you're not going to cover 100, so you picked 5. I thought that worked very well. I had to think about, you did very well. It was a very well done speech. You had very limited space to work with here because we're so cramped here, but I thought you did very well. You were able to move around in this small area and accentuate your presentation despite the cramped environment. So overall, I thought it was a great speech. I actually had to think a little bit to think about what you could do to do better. So the only thing that I can say is right at the beginning, there was a glitch with this. Again, that's very difficult. It got handled very quickly. But again, practicing with different equipment and being more familiar with the equipment can make you more able to deal with it. It wasn't a serious problem, but that is the one thing you can work on. I know I give a lot of presentations and these kind of things happen, and the more practice and better experience you have, it's boring, right? You don't really want to sit and learn how to use all these different monitors and things, but that is one way to, especially if you're giving a lot of presentations, to be more ready to give those presentations and handle those different problems. The main really big thing I thought would have made it stronger would have been your personal experience with the suggestions in the book, personal story. You give these 5 and maybe you say, I was in this meeting and I said, I'll give it a shot and I'll try, I don't know, pace around the room or something like that. I personally did that and it worked for me. That would make it stronger, would be a personal success. You did talk about some people you knew, like your boss, I think, was given to pacing around. But to say a personal experience with using the advice in the book and finding it actually worked for you, that would take it to another level and that would make it stronger. And a general point that, convincing people can seem insurmountable. But one thing that definitely helps is your personal experience, something personally. If you're talking about enthusiastically and something that happened to you, you're more credible than just I read it in the book. So overall, it was a really good speech. Demeanor, the things you asked me to look at, I thought you nailed it. Just one maybe major suggestion that might make it even stronger.
Thanks, John. And after those insurmountable evaluations, I don't think that's a good use of the word. I'll try it better. Let's welcome our Toastmasters.
Thank you, Jim. And my role is just to introduce our next without any nonsense. And he is currently the president of this club. I think that seems to be how it's working. I don't know what happened to the other 2. Maybe someday we'll find out. In the meantime, let's welcome the president of the club,
Prakash.
Well, Prakash.
Here we have a table topic session where you have 2 minutes. It would be kind of a common scenario where someone just bumped you and ask a question. You may have a clue or you may not. In majority of the cases, you may not have a clue what you want to speak. So this may be a practice session where you can practice yourself, like if you got some question which you may or may not know how you can tackle them. Let's go with the first question.
Let's wait for number 2 before.
What is your take on this book? Let's go with Rashmi.
So fail again and fail better. I will take my experience because I have so many failures in my life during before I get married, after I get married as well, after I had a baby. My daughter, she's now 8 years old. So many failures had come in my life, but the best thing which I learned from my failures is that whenever you get failure, you learn from that failure. You think about like, okay, what would be the next step I have to take it? How I'm going to overcome on that failure. So that thing I learned it like, okay, I have failure, but don't get nervous, don't lose your confidence, but think about like how you get over out that failure and you can achieve the success in future in your life.
Thank you. Let's go to the next question. Share your failure story or a failure story, how it helped. Maybe Kazu?
I have done. Well, I have done so many failures, so I cannot really pick one. That's very difficult. Okay. So as most of you have known, I have a son who just turned 14 months, and it was a very difficult time, especially for probably me, but especially to my wife, to take care of the kid just for, without working or without going outside really, and staying packing at home 24 hours with son. And I think what I failed to do was, since I was busy working, I couldn't have enough time to be with her, not with my son, but be with her, had a conversation. So that was kind of my failure, like recent failure that I had. And from now on, from that, when I realized that, I started to have more conversation with her so that, as a family, we can have a better relationships than 1 year ago. So, Pankaj.
Thank you. The next question. Can you share a success story which resulted from a failure? Let's go with Sam. Someone can find me.
Fellow Toastmasters and guests. Okay, I'm blacking out, like I can't think of anything here. But I was thinking about the fail again, fail better, and I have a different take on it, so probably I'll share with that. So if you're failing again and again, you need to see why that is happening. Maybe you're stretching yourself too much. As an example, what came to my mind is like, you can't just say like, okay, I'm going to run a marathon without taking a small steps, right? Like, so you have to take that first step of like, okay, let me run a mile. Let me I think keeping failing again, like it's draining, it just brings you down. So if you're failing again and again, take smaller steps, make your goal a little smaller, and then that will give you the boost to like go and like conquer more, I guess. That's what I thought. But yes, I do have a lot of failures. Thank you.
Okay. Then we need to find a person here.
Yeah, I can talk on this thing. So, yeah, so I'm Raj, I'm new here, so pardon me if I'm, talking it wrong or, doing it wrong. So the first thing you read or understand from a failure is like the realization that, okay, what is that is stopping me to be successful, right? So that is the first thing. For example, the very reason why I am here, I started slowly realizing that, okay, maybe I'm talking, but people are not getting convinced about what I'm talking. I'm not able to make my point, maybe in a short time, or I get some thoughts which are coming later in my mind, which probably I couldn't table when I got a chance, right? So these are the understandings, the realizations that I get when and what is the thing that I do next is like, how can I overcome that, right? So the very step that you take right after that failure is the first step towards your success, right? So the very reason I woke up early today, I am presenting myself here, is one of the first steps that I am marching towards success. Right? So probably, and I think I appreciate this group because nobody would be willing to give me feedbacks, right? So probably my parents would give me and that's it. My friends would give me and that's it. Nobody at work cares about my success. They'll say, okay, you know, this guy has to improve. That's all they'll say. Probably in a year-end review, they'll say, okay, these are the communication skills that you have to improve. But this ongoing thing and, you know, realizing your failures and then understanding what to do next are the success stories that you can build on as you go. Thank you.
Just correct.
Not the last one.
Yeah, not required. RHA. Yeah, just
RAJ.
remove it.
ING.
Yes. Okay. What is you are learning from a failure? What's your learning? Not?
So similar to what Raj just mentioned, which is when you start to when you acknowledge a failure, that's kind of that is sort of the first step towards success. There are people that do succeed. I think pretty much every single success is in some way from an acknowledgement of failure or an acknowledgement of gaps that you have, and then assessing that and then improving upon that. So really, many of the things that I feel that I do well now is because of some failure in the past that I decided to work on. I don't think I'm really great at anything that I haven't put work into, and I don't think I've put work into anything that I didn't have some sort of shortcoming that I acknowledge. So my learning from failure is how to succeed in that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question. Ever failed? If yes, how you managed it? If no, then also how you managed it? Happen.
Okay, ever failed. So, of course, we all will be failed in one instance. So, especially the parents. So, when you have a discussion with your kids, right? So you will tend to say to them like, okay, hey, see what happened to this? I'm just asking something to my kid, okay, and he say wrongly, and I'll say that in a way that I got a wrong thing and he gave a correct answer, or he knows the answer but he put it in a different way. So what I'll do is I'll in front of my kid I'll say that I have failed, okay, I'm not done it, I have missed it or something like that. I'll accept my failure, okay, in front of it. Not only me, all the parents, almost all the parents. So that way it will give an energy to my kid actually. So like one instance what happened was thank you. One instance what happened was recently he was doing some math test actually. So of course I am good at that area actually. I completed I was very much interested in maths, okay, in my school days, and he was doing some trigonometry and all other things. So he put it in a very long way, like I would say like 5 steps or 8 steps or something like that. I can solve it in 3 steps, okay. So in my olden days itself, I'm talking about the student nature. So I told him, you solved it excellently. I put 11th step and I solved it. So in front of him I showed that I failed. I did 11th step, you completed in 10th step. So that way it gives the boost to him. He says, okay, usually my wife calls me, Appa Appa means father, okay. Appa good at maths. Okay, he took centum. Centum means 200 out of 200 in maths in my curriculum. Okay, so he scored 200 out of 200. You have to score. So in front of him, I said that okay, I make myself failure and I make him as he is performing well. So after that, he started performing well in his maths. Thanks.
Okay. Maybe a difficult question. Is failing is required in life? Let's Jim.
Mr. Table Topics Master, thank you for that fascinating question. It instantly reminded me of something that my my grandfather used to tell me. He used to tell me that, well, we would go out to visit him in Indiana on his farm, and he had this very, very large plot of land around him with walnut trees on one side and a big barn on the other side. And then in the middle was this very small, humble house that my dad told me had electricity put in it when he was around 10 years old. Running water didn't come until right before he left the house, unfortunately. So it was a very different way to live. He told me, though, the important thing about failure is that in life, if I'm not learning something new every day, then I must be dying. And I took from that to mean that when I learn in my life, I usually fail at something. And it's usually when I fail that those lessons stick in my head. So I think from my grandfather's advice that you have to learn something every day, that also means that you have to fail every day. So yes, I think failing is required in life. It's not an insurmountable task to fail. Believe me, you'll have plenty of opportunities today. At least I know I will. Thank you.
How is your failure is helped you? Shall it make sense? Let's hear from Muhammad.
About failure. So I think through my life, I've been trying to become more aware of my situations about anything. Like when I was younger, where there was a failure, maybe I was trying to find another person or another situation to blame for failure. But nowadays, when something happens, I try to find what's my portion in the failure, and I try to understand something went wrong, but what was my portion of the thing that went wrong. So that's something that I try to focus on that. For example, I'm here, and I noticed that in my communication, I might not be really good at communicating. So that's why I thought that I should be somewhere to improve my weaknesses. So that's ongoing in my life, especially nowadays. I try to look back and see what are the failures and weaknesses that I have. I'm trying to adjust them. That's very general thinking about me.
Belief, potential, action, result. John?
Well, it seems almost insurmountable to figure out what that means. I interpret that.
Yeah.
I interpret that in a very sort of feel-good thing where you believe, you have the potential, you act, you get a result. And in keeping with most of the other answers, that only really works for pretty simple things. If you have a more substantial goal in mind, it doesn't go that smoothly. You have to plan on failure, on things going wrong, because anything you've never done before, other than very simple things, you will fail probably many times before you get it right. So a notorious thing that is ubiquitous in the Silicon Valley and other places is to make a schedule and a plan which assumes everything will go right. And that's why a lot of, they'll say, we're going to do this in 6 months, and 2 years later they finally get it going. And part of that is because of this assumption that everything's going to go right. And in any substantial undertaking in life, whether it's at work or personal or whatever, with rare exceptions, it doesn't go smoothly. So you have to plan on things going wrong. Now, for some things, you can at least get kind of historical data. You can look at other people or talk to other people, like when you tried to do something like this, how many times did you fail? How long did it actually take you to do it? So you can actually make more realistic assessments. And also, one of the things is, yes, you're going to fail and you have to get up and keep doing it. But what do you do if that's happened several times and you don't seem to be getting anywhere, right? I mean, clearly a very good chance your first attempt will fail, but what if you got past, say, 3? You ought to be seeing at least significant improvements. So that's where it gets particularly difficult, because you've hit something where just persevering and, going out there, like in baseball, you keep practicing, but, people will hit a plateau, right? They keep practicing and they don't get any better. So what I would say is at that point, that's a particularly hard situation where you have to decide, what you're up against. Have you just undertaken something you can't do? Or do you really need to take a step back and look more deeply at your assumptions and what's going on in order to make progress? Mr. Table Topics Master.
I'm running out of question. We may need to reuse. Yeah. The next one has a chance to choose among the slides whichever they like. Who's the next one? Scott?
Thank you for passing this down to me. And I think failure and success in general require you to have a belief. I want to talk about this though. The belief, potential, action, results. Failure is a result, but sometimes you don't even fail because you don't know what is success. I think that probably is more important, to have a belief or have a merit of some kind to think about what is success, and then you can fail. So I think the action of fail is, or the result of fail is a consequence that you figure out what success is and you have a goal. So for that, I think failure is actually a good outcome comparing to not even wrong. So I always give a positive kind of sight on what failure is. That means I know what I want, at least I figure out what would be a desirable outcome for me. So for that, I want to maybe twist this a little bit, because if you don't have the belief, you don't have failure. And if you don't know how to fail, then it just means that you haven't figured out what you want. Thank you.
Who's not called up on it? Our Toastmaster. I mean, which one like to choose?
Mr. Table Topics Master, I just heard 2 very interesting talk on this particular topic, and both are valid in the sense that a lot of times when we look at the world, there's no yes or no, or black or white. It's always intermesh. And so it's very interesting that I mean, what Scott talked about in terms of you have to understand what success is in order to fail. and what John talked about in terms of even if you believe, sometimes you might not be able to get there because it takes a lot of effort, and sometimes you can hit a wall, and hitting a wall of anything that's a real barrier, and you're just not strong enough or not feasible to go against what's real, then you'll never be able to get there. So unfortunately, it's very abstract. I'm trying to think of a story to tell, but I'm too tired. So we'll have to tell it next time. Mr. Tabletop Master.
Okay. The last question goes to Eva. Which one you want to choose?
You can choose one, Prakash, from this.
Yeah.
You can say. And better that last one.
I will choose this one. We're still running from failure. Is that okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics. I can totally relate to this one. So 2 weeks ago, I took my CIA exam, which stands for Certified Internal Auditor. So I have a CPA, but I want to get another certification. But that was like 2 weeks after the holidays, and I was still rushing through like wrapping up year-end work. I did not study enough, and then the night before, I didn't sleep. I stayed up thinking I can just, study as much as I can. Then the next day, maybe I can pass the exam. And then as the result announced, I failed an exam very badly. So I have to wait another 3 months to retake that exam. That totally delays my progress in getting my lessons. So the lesson learned is for important things like this, better to wait and plan out ahead of time than rush through. Then I feel like it's almost guaranteed you're gonna fail, like in a very bad way. So that's my take on this one. Be prepared.
With that,
What was 10th question is for you. 10th slide.
10th slide.
Yeah.
Question for you.
This one?
No.
The previous
10th.
one. Could you go back one slide, please?
Your corner, yes. Your corner.
This is my question?
Yeah.
Okay. On this belief, potential, action and result, I do believe what John said, but at the same time, if you have a stronger belief or a stronger purpose, definitely you need to see what is your potential. When you believe in that, I totally agree with what Wai Ming told. We may get hitting the wall or a physical barrier or whatever the barrier it can be. If you still believe you can achieve, I may be wrong, but still, I don't know, you will definitely have a potential where you can put into action towards your goal. Finally, I don't know when it will be. It can be 6 months, it can be 6 years or 60 years. Definitely you will reach a result or your goal. It again depends on how well you plan, or how well you prepare, or how well you fail, or how well you acknowledge your failure. So then it can, or you may reach at a result one day. It can be the slower pace or a bigger, quicker pace. That's what my take. Thank you. With that, I will conclude my table topic session. Let's welcome Jim for general evaluation.
All right. As our general evaluation part of the meeting, I'll first call on our duty masters, and then I'll go through an evaluation of the meeting myself. Let's start with our timer, Samuel. How did we do today, Samuel?
It's just, the timer is still going. It's
Okay, you're still running. Okay.
For some reason.
Somehow it's not taking video.
Scott Your speech was 7 minutes and 37 seconds. Eva, your speech was 5 minutes and 35 seconds. For the evaluators, Mohammed, your evaluation was 2 minutes and 21 seconds. John, your evaluation was 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Everyone else is like around 1 minute and something, except for John. Yours was 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Apan was 2 minutes and 23 seconds.
All right, thanks, Ed. If you haven't done so already, please vote and send your votes to our ballot counter. That's you, right? Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, our grammarian and Mark.
Alright, so for our two speakers, Scott and Ava, the main thing that I picked up was there was some, I'm forgetting the term for it, but it's essentially, instead of using, you use plural where you should use singular, or singular where you should use plural. So for Scott, he said some general guidelines, would be guidelines, and then some was with reason, and some of the reasons, and then Ava, I picked up you saying professional developments a few times, so it would be just professional developments. Prakash, for some of the questions, one would be, it's kind of pedantic, but it's incomplete sentences. So one of them you put ever failed. Well, I guess actually that one might be fine. That might be just an implied have you ever failed. And then how you have managed it, we typically say how have you managed it, at least for like American English. And then for another question, it said how's your failure is helped you. There was just an extra is. You could just say how has your failure helped you. And then upon one thing that I picked up, yours was just more of like a British English. You said maths, plural. The American English, we just say math. And that's it.
Thanks, Ron. Next is our word master, John.
Yes, our word of the day was insurmountable. Wyman used it twice. Mark used it once. Kazu used it once. I didn't hear Ava use it. Scott used it once. Mohammed, I didn't hear you use it. I used it twice, once in my evaluation, once in table topics. Rashmi, is it Rashmi? I didn't hear you use it. Kazu, take off. Kazu, I didn't hear you use insurmountable. Sam, I didn't hear you use it. Raj, I did not hear you use it. Mark, I didn't hear you use it.
I used it once.
You used it once, okay, yeah. And you didn't use it in table topics.
Oh, not during table.
But that, as long as you used it once, you're fine. Apan, I didn't hear you use it. Jim, you used it in table topics and in your general evaluator. Mohammed, again, you didn't use it in table topics. I used it in table topics, and then, yeah, that covers everybody.
Thanks. Our joke master today is Mark. Thank you.
Also. So this will be a short and sweet one, and you can participate as well. But what do you call a cow with no legs? A cow with no legs.
Colleague?
Colleague? where do you work?
Where do you work?
Cow leg colleague.
Ground beef.
Oh.
What do you call a cow with two legs? Lean beef. What do you call a cow with 4 legs?
Go.
Cow.
Thank you.
What's that?
A cow.
Cow.
Right, that's it.
Thank you, Mark. You can try those at your next meeting at work. Who's our Thank you.
For Samuel, like he used like twice and 2 times. John he has used 1 time. Mark 5 times. Kazu 3 times. Scott 5. Wyman 2. Ava 6. Prakash 9. Muhammad 6. Jim 2. Raj 2. Apan 4. And Apan used so 7 times.
Thanks, Archer. Thank you. There is a 5-cent fine. I don't know if we have a cup
or anything to go around? This one's full
No,
of
this
coffee,
one.
so I don't think we want anything. Okay, while the cup goes around, I'll start the general evaluation then. I want to focus on 3 themes today: energy, organization, and your key points. So I'll start with our Toastmaster. Toastmaster study is really focused on organizing the meeting and then on starting the meeting and getting the energy level up and going. And I think Wyoming did an excellent job with our start of the meeting today, getting the energy level going. I remember him saying, "We have a great meeting today." And, you know, as a very analytical person, I realized that, well, we don't have any data yet to support that hypothesis, but by saying it, you know, you've kind of gotten us ready to have great meetings. I really appreciate that. Organization-wise, I think I've been away for a while. I've come back for 2 meetings now in a row. And we're struggling with our video master role. I think we need to put some more organization into that, make sure someone's available to do it before the start of the meeting, because it does take some technical skill. I would say most other roles though were filled, which is the biggest, hardest part of being Toastmaster, so I thank you for that one. Next, our evaluators today. As general evaluator, I'm asked to evaluate the evaluators. I'm not asked to actually evaluate the speakers, and that's because our speakers have already gotten an evaluation. So I'm just going to focus on what I thought our evaluators did well in and where I think they could improve. First, Muhammad, I think you had a few good key points in there, especially I remember you talking about jargon and asking Scott to make sure that he defines things like a ketogenic diet, which you weren't familiar with. Probably a lot of us aren't familiar with that term as well. I think your organization could use a bit more work. You started your evaluation by going through kind of a list of all those key things that Toastmasters say we need to do in a speech: vocal variety, movement on the stage, gestures, all these good things. Maybe we could just choose 3 or 4 of them to focus on. You only have 2 to 3 minutes to talk, so it's very helpful to do that. Otherwise, I think that was one of your first evaluations?
That was my first.
Wow. All right, thank you. So it's a good start.
Yeah.
First thing you do is have to come up here. John is a very experienced evaluator, and I think it definitely showed today. I think you had good organization. You had some good examples, like Ava's book here that she showed was a good thing that she did. You had a good key takeaway, which was to try to add in more of your own personal experience into your speeches, and that's something that we can all use in our speeches. My labs are doing well. Just wanted to say kudos for our timer today, Samuel. Sometimes our timers will hold up the card and put it back down as soon as they think you've seen it. But back to the focus idea, sometimes I might be looking in the direction of the timer, but I might not be focused on the timer. So if you're a timer, please hold it up like Samuel's doing today for the entire time. And it's also great for developing your arm muscles, so you never have to do something like I did. It's now my time to hand our meeting back to our president. Our president-elect, or I'm not sure what your role is. Right.
Doing good. Raj, what's your take on our meeting for you?
So I definitely feel this is useful, definitely useful for me. I'm sure it is useful for you all too, because you guys are like spending your valuable time to evaluate others, and it definitely helps improving you in a way, but others in a much better way. That's my take. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd love to come here again.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks
excellent.
Any announcements?
So as some of you know, I'm a longtime member of the club. I've been in it for several years. I got into it when I was working here actually for a company. But anyway, As some of you know, I was in a car accident a year and a half ago, and I've been sort of putting off getting a car. So my intent is actually to get a car the next month or two. I was planning to come back here, but while that was going on, someone bought the building. I work like about a block from here. Someone bought the building that I'm in, so I need to find another office. So if I can't find one that's sort of like on the way here, fairly close by, I probably won't be able to come again, at least for quite a while. So anyway, I want to just let people know that, and I've always had a great time at the club, but if you don't see me again, it's not you, it's me.
Thank you, John.
One announcement. Our District 101 has the Toastmasters Leadership Institute this weekend. It looks like it's going to be a very good program on Saturday. They have the winner of the 2013 International Speech Contest coming to give a workshop on Friday evening and then give some more talks on Saturday as well, so that you can learn from his experience and learn how to make your speeches even better. His topic is storytelling, so I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I'm going. Lee is registered.
What is the time, did you say? It's Saturday morning for the most
It's
part.
a
I thought
Saturday
it's
morning,
like
yeah.
8 to 1, something like that.
8 to 1.
I'm going
I
at
can put your details.
7:30.
You can still register now.
But
And
how do, where we have to register for this?
I can
The-
send you a link.
The District 101 website, which I think is d101.tm or something. But if you
I have,
Google District 101 Toastmasters,
What is it?
101 is the main highway.
What is it?
So if I register today, I'm
It's an officer meeting and we have some other
There is no like
storytelling
minimum seats like.
workshop.
So Prakash,
How you can better.
you will send a group email to members?
Yes,
No
I
worries.
can do that as well.
All right. And I'm also a volunteer at the event.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm also doing some volunteering work. They said help them in bookshop.
Yeah.
Is
So
it happening
I'm
somewhere around?
I don't remember. I know
It's
it's
Sunnyvale. Sunnyvale.
it's,
Sunnyvale,
yeah.
No, close by.
And one announcement I had like already, as Jim brought up, we have TLI coming up this week, and we have officers training. Whoever is officer, you can register and get trained. Whoever is not officer also can go into that. It is kind of educational. You can see what an officer put an effort, or you can see how we can improve our club. And that's one. The other one is we have a contest coming. Maybe next month we need to have the contest. Maybe next week we will start with the nomination. Next week we will have a contest. So we can start our, whoever is interested can start nominating themselves. And we have the renewal for the next term going on. Probably we need to get renewed kind of a mid of March. So you can start paying your dues. That's it from my side.
We have
Any other announcements?
3 minutes to leave the room. So we
Yes. Yeah, we'll definitely. And for the next week roles, we have a Toastmaster ever. Anyone want to take table topics or evaluation roles?
I can do that.
Evaluation, okay.
I can
You want-
do
You want to do GE or evaluation?
Evaluation, please.
Okay.
You can do G.
You want to be GE? Okay.
So he said he wants to do.
Yeah, table topics.
Table topics.
Or if even
We will,
if anyone else is interested, then I can back off. No problem.
no, first, you want to be, you need to be a member.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll do table topics.
Huh?
I'll do table topics,
Okay.
yeah. Or you can pay your dues, fill out the form and
Yeah.
you're a member and you're in.
I didn't know that.
No, he can reach out to you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mark is there. He will reach out to you. I will pass on your email to him, so he will reach out to you.
Okay, let's start our let's see who's run our table topic session. Drum roll, please.
Got it?
Our table topic winner is Ken. Woo! We'll see the best evaluator. Best evaluator goes to John.
Wow, that's great. Wyman, can you take a picture of me taking the award? That's the button right there in the center.
The evaluator we have. No?
Yeah, 1 minute, 1 minute. It's underneath actually. You
Yeah.
got it?
I missed a slide.
The best,
Check it.
the best speaker goes to Eva.
Okay. We need more, another camera. There's John's camera. John, you can send us the pictures
Best
maybe.
evaluator.
Oh, okay, well, let's try again.
That might be a better photo.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can send us the pictures.
With that, we are good to close our meeting on time. 1 minute early, 2 minutes early. So we are